Hello, very good morning to everyone. So today we will be discussing the first chapter of semiconductor devices, that is introduction to semiconductor devices. So in this chapter we will be studying the Bohr's atomic model, atomic structure, then the concept of energy levels, as well as then we will study the concept of energy band diagram also. Then we will discuss the types of semiconductors, intrinsic semiconductors as well as the extrinsic semiconductors, the formation of extrinsic semiconductors like n-type and p-type. Then we discuss the p-n junction formation, then the biasing methods, as well as we will study the p-n junction diode characteristics, that is VI characteristics. After that we will be dealing with a special kind of diode, that is Zener diode, its characteristics as well as its application as a voltage regulator. Okay, so we shall begin the discussion with the very first thing, that is the matter. As we already know, matter is anything which occupies space, which has a mass as well as it occupies a space. So ಯಾವುದು ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ it should have a mass as well as it should occupy the space. It exists in the form of three forms, that is solids, liquids as well as gas. ಸೊ ಮೂರು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನೇಚರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗಿರುವಂಥ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್ ಇರುವಂಥ ಮೂರು ಸ್ಟೇಜಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಾಲಿಡ್ಸು, ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ಸು ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಗ್ಯಾಸಿಯಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. So as we know that all of these forms will have certain mass as well as they occupy the space ಕೂಡ occupy ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತಾವ. Then after that matter doesn't alone exist. Matter ಅನ್ನೋದು it doesn't exist alone. It is made up of million number of atoms ಇಂದ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So what is an atom ಅಂತ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, atom is the smallest and fundamental particle. So again the atom doesn't exist alone. So it is again made up of subcomponents. The subcomponents of an atom are nothing but neutrons, protons as well as electrons. So in the next slide we will see what is the mass of each these fundamental subparticles as well as their charge. The mass of the electrons is very light. As you can see, electrons are very light in weight. So when we won't say the exact mass, so it is around 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kg actually, the mass of the electron. So this is a very light particle, or its mass is very light. So if you do a comparison with the mass of protons and neutrons, means the mass will be approximately 1 divided by 1840th times, or you can say it is 1840th times less than that of mass of proton or neutron. So this is regarding the mass. So means you can say that electrons are very light in nature, and protons and neutrons, they have the equal mass. So here I have given you a table which will list out the charge as well as the value of the charge. Protons, as you can see, they are positive in charge, and the charge possessed by them will be positive andaga it will be 1.602 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. So this is positive in nature, so we can so if anything is not written, obviously this will be a positive number, or you can prefix it with a positive sign also. Positive sign in the physics prefix ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. Electrons, they are negative in nature. So the charge of the proton as well as the charge of electrons, you can see here both are one and the same. Only the difference is the charge on the proton is positive, and here it is negative. That's it. It can be represented as minus 1.602 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. Okay. Then again we are left with one more fundamental particle, that is neutron. This is neutral in nature. This doesn't possess any charge, or you can say it is going to possess a 0 coulomb charge. So it is not possessing any charge. With this discussion I can say that the protons are positive in nature, electrons are negative in nature, and neutrons are neutral in nature. So whenever we specify an atom, means we should specify each and every atom in the periodic table with their atomic number as well as with their atomic weight. Then what is atomic number and what is atomic weight means? So the number of protons in an atom is nothing but the atomic number. So how many number of protons are present in an atom? So that itself will tell you the atomic number. And one more factor we have to say about the atom is atomic weight. Atomic weight is nothing but it is the sum of proton as well as the electron, sum of the total number of protons as well as electrons which are present at the nucleus of an atom is nothing but atomic weight. So whenever we specify any atoms in the periodic table, obviously we have to specify each and every atom with their atomic number as well as atomic weight. Okay, so how the structure looks like, how the structure of an atom looks like. There were so many scientists who were proposed the different atomic models, but one that is commonly accepted by or you can say one that is universally accepted is nothing but Niels Bohr's atomic model. So you can see here there is something, this is like a solar system, the entire system, it looks like a planetary type of structure. In planetary type of structure, as you can see, the sun will be at the central place, and all the planets will be revolving around the sun at a fixed distance. In the solar system, or you can say in the planetary type of system, as you see, the sun will be at the center. Similarly here you can see the nucleus, this is nothing but nucleus, this acts like a sun, this is exactly at the center, and the different electrons which are light in weight, the different number of electrons will be revolving around the nucleus at the fixed distance, so the these electrons are revolving or move around the nucleus in the similar way of the revolution of planets around the sun. Okay, the electrons are negatively charged, the electrons which are revolving here. So here I have shown the 3 electrons. These electrons are negatively charged, and the nucleus which I have shown you here at the center, it is positively charged. So since, as we know from the fundamental concept of electricity, or you can say the Coulomb's law, the opposite charges will try to attract with each other. Opposite charges means, as you can see, the nucleus here, it is positively charged, and the electrons are negatively charged. There will be a force of attraction, there exists a force of attraction between them and the electrons which are revolving around the nucleus in the fixed orbits, they will be revolving in a fixed orbits. These orbits are nothing but, you can say them as cells, you can say the cells are as well as the orbits. That is nothing but that is a path, that is a track on which the electrons will be revolving around the nucleus. These different tracks are named with the alphabets K, L, M, N, like that. So like this, the nucleus, it is made up of protons and neutrons, and the electrons will be revolving around the nucleus at the fixed distance, or you can say at the fixed path, nothing but orbits or cells. So here in the next slide we can see this is somewhat the detailed diagram. So here, as you can see, this is a center, this is located at the center, which is nothing but nucleus anta karibodu idka. So this nucleus is made up of protons as well as neutrons. So protons, they are shown in the red color here, which possesses the positive charge, and the neutrons, which are neutral in nature, I have not shown any charges on them, and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus at the fixed distance. So these circular tracks or circular paths are known as orbits or cells ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಇವಕ್ಕೆ. So here in this picture I have shown you only two orbits, or you can say two cells. The first cell can be named as K and the second cell can be designated with alphabet M. Similarly, there could be some more orbits. They should be numbered or they should be named as K, L, M, N and so on. So adara name ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. And each orbit will be having a fixed capacity to hold the number of electrons. So the number of electrons in each orbit, they will be in a fixed number. So each orbit will be having certain capacity. The capacity of the orbit to hold the number of electrons will be calculated by a formula 2n square. So here n represents the number of the orbit. Let's say k is nothing but 1. If you substitute 1 here, 2 into 1 square means you will get a value of 2. So only the 2 electrons are permitted in the first orbit. Similarly, so for the next higher level orbit, that is L, so that is nothing but the value of the second orbit. The value of the second orbit means n will be equal to 2. The number of electrons that are permissible in the second orbit are nothing but, if you substitute n equal to 2 here, you will get a value 2 to the power of 2. 4 into 2 andra you will get a value 8. So in the second orbit 8 electrons are permitted. Similarly, the higher orbits, and remember, as long as the electrons are revolving in the orbit, they neither absorb the energy or they or nor emit the energy. When an electron that is in the orbit, it absorbs the energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation. Let's say, so to this electron I have given an energy, so which energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation, let's say this is represented by h nu, or you can say delta E. Whenever this much amount of energy is given to the electron that is revolving in the first orbit, delta E equal to h nu, this electron, it absorbs the energy and it jumps from lower energy or lower orbit to higher orbit. Remember, each orbit is going to possess its own energy, so energy level. So whenever an electron that is revolving in the lower orbit, if it absorbs an energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation, it jumps from lower energy level to higher energy level. In the similar manner, so let's say if an electron is revolving in the higher energy level, if it loses the energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation, then it jumps from higher energy level to lower energy level by emitting the energy again in the form of electromagnetic radiation, which will be given by again delta E equal to h nu, as in the previous case. Again it is going to be emitted. So here h is nothing but it is a Planck's constant, and v is nothing but the frequency of the emitted electromagnetic radiation. This is about the Bohr's atomic model. As you can see, there are different orbits here. Each orbit is referred as an energy cell. Each orbit is possessing its own energy level. So remember, the first orbit is under the tremendous force of attraction from the nucleus. So since this is let me erase this. The first orbit, you can see here, this is very close to the nucleus. The distance is only this much. So since this orbit is very close to the nucleus, so this cell or this orbit is going to possess very less amount of energy, and these electrons are tightly bonded with the nucleus. But as we move away from the nucleus, let's say here in this example, let's see the second orbit. The second orbit is somewhat far away from the nucleus compared to the distance in the previous case. Means the first orbit is at very close to the very close to the nucleus, second orbit is somewhat far away from the nucleus, and the energy level possessed by the second orbit is more than the energy level possessed by the first orbit. Like this, as the number of orbits increases, so as we move away from the nucleus, the orbit is going to possess more and more energy. But as we move close towards the nucleus, the energy level possessed by the orbits will be very less. The last orbit, you can say, as shown in the picture here, the second orbit itself is the last orbit. So this orbit is under very least force of attraction with the nucleus. So as the number of orbits, let's say there are 3, there are 4, like this, if there are 4 number of orbits are there, the farthest orbit is nothing but the fourth orbit here. This fourth orbit is very far away from the nucleus, and it is under very least force of attraction from the nucleus. So nucleus ninda enagutte attraction force kadime akonta hoಗುತ್ತೆ. As we move away from the nucleus, so the amount of attraction force it decreases, and this last orbit is referred as valence orbit anta karitare, and the electrons that are revolving in the last orbit are referred as valence orbit. As we seen in the previous case, whenever an electron in an orbit absorbs the energy, it jumps from lower energy level to higher energy level. Let's say we have few electrons in the valence orbit. So this is the last orbit, which is referred as valence orbit. The electrons here are very loosely bonded with the nucleus, because there is a very least force of attraction from the nucleus is there. So whenever you make the energy to fall on this electron, or whenever this electron absorbs the energy, as we seen in the previous concept, whenever an electron absorbs energy, it has to jump from lower energy level to higher energy level. But as we can see in this atomic structure here, this is the last orbit. So whenever this electron absorbs energy, there is nowhere place it can jump into another energy level or another orbit. So once the electron or the valence electron absorbs energy, it jumps from valence bond and it becomes free. So you can refer it as free electron. Why it is called as free electron? Because it is free from an attraction force from the nucleus. So these free electrons will participate in the current conduction. So if you see the concept of energy level, so here I have shown you clearly with different orbits or different energy levels. This is cell 1, cell 2, or this is valence cell. Valence cell means this is the farthest orbit or farthest cell from the nucleus, which is under very least force of attraction from the nucleus, or this is going to possess very high energy level. So if you see the energy level, as I already told you, the orbit or the cell which is very near to the nucleus is going to possess less energy. So as we move away from the nucleus, the energy levels possessed by the cells is going to increase. So this is shown with the arrow here, arrow direction. So if the energy level is getting increased in this direction, similarly the force of attraction will get increase in the reverse direction. Means the electrons in the valence orbit are under very least force of attraction, and the electrons that are in the first orbit are under the tremendous force of attraction. This is what the concept of energy level says. Next, that is the concept of energy level. Here we will see the energy band diagram. In the energy band diagram, in solids you cannot see a single atom. As we say that in solids there will be million number of atoms will be there, and each atom is going to possess different energy levels. So if there are million number of atoms are there, means all these atoms they share their electrons to form a bond. that bond is referred as covalent bond. So as you can say, let's say this is a solid here. So in solid there will be million number of atoms like that. Let's say I have shown only 2 as of now. So this atom is going to possess its own energy levels, and this atom again it is going to possess its own energy levels. So let's say there is a second energy level. Similarly here also there is a second energy level possessed by the second atom. Like this, if there are million number of atoms are there, so here I have shown you only 2. If there are million number of atoms are there, means the atoms are very will be lying very close to each other. So whenever they are lying very close to each other, they share their electrons to form a bond. They share their electrons to form a bond. That bond is referred as covalent bond. So whenever a covalent bond is formed, obviously the energy possessed by the cells will also get merged. So whenever the energy possessed by the orbits of an atom, if it merges its energy levels with the neighboring atoms andaga, so alli enagutta, the merging of the energy levels, it forms a energy band. So the inname ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ, energy band is nothing but the merging of energy levels in a material or in a solid is nothing but energy band. So here the energy level of free electrons, the energy level of first orbit, the energy level of second orbit, the energy levels of valence orbit, and the energy levels of free electrons also merge with each other to form different energy bands. Here in the picture you can say the first band. So first band, it refers to the energy levels of the first orbit electrons. They merge with each other to form this bond, which is nothing but first band. Second band andre eno, the energy levels of second orbit electrons, they merge with each other to form a bond, which is nothing but second band. Similarly, valence band andre enappa, the energy levels of valence electrons of each atom, they merge together to form a bond called as valence bond. And how about these conduction band andre, so valence band andre valence electrons anta helidre. So as we shown in the previous case, so if these are the valence electrons, if an additional energy is given to them, they become totally free from the attraction from the nucleus. Anta electrons now free electrons anta kariತೀವಿ. The energy band that is formed by merging the energy levels possessed by the free electrons is nothing but conduction band. So E band edakagirodu, this is formed because of the merging of the energy levels of the free electrons. This is formed by the merging of energy levels of valence electrons. Similarly, this is formed by merging of the first band electrons and first orbit electrons. This is formed by merging of the energy levels of second orbit electrons, like this. Similarly, here you can see here there is an energy gap between the valence band and conduction band. This is nothing but, this is referred as forbidden energy gap. So this forbidden, as the name itself indicates, forbidden in the sense not allowed. The electrons can either remain in the first orbit, or they can remain in the second orbit, or they can remain in the valence orbit, or they can remain in the conduction band. But in this gap between the valence band and conduction band, this is the space, so where no free electrons or no free charge carriers are allowed to stay here. So that's why it is referred as forbidden energy gap. Forbidden energy gap, that is represented by EZ, and it is measured in an unit called as electron volt. Next, so this is the classifications of the materials like conductors, insulators, or semiconductors in terms of the energy level diagrams. So here first we shall see about the conductor. In conductor, large number of the free electrons exist. So large number of free electrons will be there exist, at the normal room temperature itself. Normal room temperature nalli large number of free electrons irtava, and there is no energy gap here. Here you can see there is no forbidden energy gap, means so these energy levels of conduction band as well as valence band, they merge with each other. They merge with each other, or you can say they are overlapped. So easy will be easy andra energy gap or energy forbidden energy gap. Here it will be just a 0. Okay. Next we shall see the insulators. In case of insulators, there is a large energy gap is there between the, or large forbidden energy gap is there between the valence band and conduction band. So even though all electrons will be present in the valence band, even though if you give an additional energy to these electrons won't they won't cross this gap and they get filled in the conduction band. Means, so even though whenever high voltage or high temperature energy in the form of high voltage or high temperature is given to the electrons in the valence band, they won't jump into conduction band. Means the conduction band will be always empty, or you can say no free electrons exist in the conduction band. So that's why so these are referred as insulators. These won't conduct at all. So energy gap anta bandaga, there is a large energy gap between the valence band and conduction band, which is approximately 7 electron volt. 7 electron volt irutte. The examples for insulators anta ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ you can tell the wood material ಇರಬಹುದು, or you can say mica, or you can say paper, ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಇರಬಹುದು. Next we shall see the semiconductors. So the behavior of the semiconductor is somewhat different. In semiconductors, so here we will tell the concept of energy level diagrams, or the concept of energy levels diagrams at two different temperatures. First temperature we will consider at the exactly at the 0 degree Celsius or 0 temperature. At 0 degree Celsius, very few electrons will be there in the conduction band, very few electrons, and most of the electrons will be lying in the valence band. Very few electrons will be there in the conduction band. But at the normal room temperature, let's say 25 degree irbodu, athwa let's consider an example at 25 degree Celsius, most electrons from the valence band, they jump into conduction band, or the conduction band gets filled. So at normal room temperature, the semiconductor, they behave like a conductor. At 0 degree Celsius, they behave like an insulator. So the behavior of this semiconductor is somewhat in between that of conductor as well as insulator. That's why it is referred as semiconductor, neither a conductor nor a insulator, so somewhat in between. So if you see the energy gap here, this is not overlap agilla like insulators or like conductors, or this is not large as in case of insulator. It is somewhat small energy gap is there, which is approximately 1 electron volt. So this is 1.1 to 1.1 for the silicon and 0.78 for the germanium. So like this. So first conductor anta bandaga, large number of free electrons are available even at room temperature. Large number of free electrons irtava because it is a idar conductivity ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇದರ conductivity ಭಾಳ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದರ conductivity ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ in between that of conductor and insulator. So if you are asked to define the semiconductor ಅಂದಾಗ, semiconductor is a kind of material whose conductivity lies in between the conductivity of conductor and the conductivity of insulator. That's it. Next we shall see the types of semiconductor. There are two types of semiconductors are there. Very first one is intrinsic and another one is extrinsic. First we shall see the intrinsic semiconductor, the semiconductors that are present in their purest form in the sense there is no mixture, so there is no impurity that is added to them. It is available in the purest form. The examples for them are germanium and silicon. So you can see here the atomic structure of germanium and silicon. So atomic number is 32 for the germanium and 14 for the silicon. So as I have already told, the first orbit can accommodate 2 electrons, next one can 8, next one can 18, and last one can 32. So similarly here also there are only 3 orbits are there. So here you can see the last orbit. We should focus on the last orbit. Last orbit means that is the valence orbit, the farthest orbit. So in case of germanium also, the farthest orbit, it consists of only 4 electrons. Similarly in case of silicon also, the farthest orbit or the valence orbit, it consists of only 4 electrons. Means germanium also consists of 4 valence electrons and silicon also consists of 4 valence electrons. So that's why it is referred as tetravalent in nature. Means tetra means 4. There will be 4 valence electrons will be there in their atomic structure. Next is the second type of semiconductor, that is extrinsic semiconductor. So this is somewhat reverse as that we are defined for the intrinsic semiconductor. This is an impure or mixed form of semiconductor. Mixed form of semiconductor in the sense, so here we won't be using the intrinsic semiconductor for constructing any semiconductor device because of its conductivity. So usually the conductivity of the intrinsic semiconductor will be very low or it is very small. So in order to increase the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor, we should add some impurity. So such type of impure or mixed form of semiconductor is referred as N type of semiconductor, extrinsic semiconductor, and the examples are N type and P type of semiconductor. Then what is doping anta illi ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, doping is nothing but the process of adding the impurity. The process of adding the impurity, or you can say the dopants, the impurity to the intrinsic semiconductor. The process is referred as doping and the impurity added is referred as dopant. There are two types of dopants that can be added. Dopants. So what is the let's say brief ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ extrinsic semiconductor ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, intrinsic semiconductor plus an impurity. So impurity ಮತ್ತು intrinsic semiconductor ಸೇರಿದಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ಸಿಗುತ್ತಾ, you will get the extrinsic semiconductor. Clear? Why this doping is done ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸಲ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾರೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಗೆ. Doping is generally done to increase the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor conductivity increase ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ we will be adding impurity to the intrinsic semiconductor so that we can get the extrinsic semiconductor suitable for constructing any semiconductor devices. So if you briefly discuss about the impurities, dopants ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ impurities ನ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ there will be two types of impurities that will be added to the intrinsic semiconductor. So based on that, they are classified as N type and P type. First one is pentavalent impurity. So as we seen in the previous case, it is referred as tetravalent. Tetravalent intrinsic semiconductor, germanium irbodu athwa silicon irbodu, they are tetravalent in nature, means there will be 4 valence electrons, right? Here pentavalent impurity means this is an impurity with 5 valence electrons. 5 valence electrons irtava. So these 5 valence electrons will produce an N type of semiconductor by contributing an extra electron. How N type of semiconductor will be formed, we will see it in the later session. First we shall understand it is pentavalent in nature, means there will be 5 valence electrons. So and it will form a type of extrinsic semiconductor which is called as N type of semiconductor. Which all are the pentavalent impurities ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ಇದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಕಟ್ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತೇನೆ ನಾನು, ಬಾಪ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತೇನೆ. ಸೊ ಬಾಪ್, arsenic, bismuth and phosphorus, any impurity can be added and each impurity is going to donate one extra free electron. Next, trivalent impurity andre enu? So trivalent, as the name itself indicates, these impurities consist of 3 valence electrons, and these are used to form a P type of semiconductor. And here, as in the previous case, it has contributed an extra electron, but this will produce a hole, or you can say an electron deficiency. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಯಿತು, ಒಂದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯಿತು, ಇಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಏನಾಯಿತು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯಿತು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಹೋಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಈಚ್ trivalent impurity, or it is also referred as acceptor impurity, because each of these impurities are deficit of one electron, or they will be ready position to accept an electron. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅವಕ್ಕೆ acceptor impurity ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. and each pentavalent impurity is going to donate one free electron, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದನ್ನು donor impurity ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. examples for trivalent impurity ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೊ boron, indium and gallium, ಬಿಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತೇವೆ. boron, indium, gallium ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. so now we will see how the n type of semiconductor is formed. so if you mix an pentavalent impurity ಬಾಪ್ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಬಾಪ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ, ಅರ್ಸೆನಿಕ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಬಿಸ್ಮತ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಫಾಸ್ಫರಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದನ್ನು ಇಫ್ ಯು ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆನ್ಸಿಕ್ ಸೆಮಿಕಂಡಕ್ಟರ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಜರ್ಮೇನಿಯಮ್ ಆರ್ ಸಿಲಿಕಾನ್, ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಾದರೂ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ n type of semiconductor. Here you can see crystal structure of arsenic atom. So here I have just shown you only one arsenic atom, how it is going to form the covalent bond, how n type of semiconductor is formed anta ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ. So here very first one is, as we already know, the arsenic atom, or you can say the pentavalent impurity, or it can be also referred as donor impurity. There will be 4 valence electrons possessed, 4 valence electrons will be possessed by each silicon atom. so ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಸಿಲಿಕಾನ್ ಅಟಮ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅದಾವಪ್ಪ, 4 valence electronsಗಳು ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. and arsenic is going to possess 5 valence electrons. ಎಷ್ಟು ಇರ್ತಾವೆ, 5 ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. means each valence electron of arsenic atom is going to form a covalent bond with the neighboring silicon atom's valence electron. You can see here covalent bond ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, that is formed by 2 electrons, 2 electrons ಇಂದ ಮಾಡಿದಂಥ ಬಾಂಡು. here there is one more covalent bond is there, this is one more covalent bond, and this is one more covalent bond. like this 4 covalent bonds ಅಂದ್ರೆ the 5 valence electrons, out of which 4 valence electrons of arsenic atom, they form the covalent bond with the neighboring silicon atom. Then the 5th valence electron of the arsenic atom, it is made free, or you can say this donor impurity has contributed a free electron. like this, if you add one more arsenic atom, let's say here there is one more arsenic atom is added andaga, this arsenic atom again it donates one free electron. like this, as you increase, as we add more and more impurity, as we add more and more pentavalent impurity to this silicon atomic structure, each arsenic atom is donating one free electron. means as the number of electrons are more in number here compared to the number of holes, obviously electrons will be the majority charge carriers. so here this amount of doping ಎಷ್ಟಿರಬೇಕಪ್ಪ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತೀಗ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ. ಸೊ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಅರ್ಸೆನಿಕ್ ಅಟಾಮ್ ಹಾಕೊಂತ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಫ್ರೀ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಬರ್ಕೊತ ಹೋದು. ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಐ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಆಡ್ million number of impurities here. There should be a proper doping level should be there, that should be maintained. ಎಷ್ಟಿರಬೇಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ that should be 1:10 to the power of 6. 1:10 to the power of 6 ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, for 10 to the power of 6 ಅಂದರೆ for 1 million number of atoms of silicon atoms I have to add one arsenic impurity atomನ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತಾ. this is the doping level you have to maintain. and majority charge carriers ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ obviously usually in a neutral atom number of electrons will be equal to the number of holes, but here when you form an n type of structure, n type of semiconductor, here the number of electrons will be more in number, that's why they are referred as majority charge carriers, and the number of holes will be very less in number, those are referred as minority charge carriers. This is about the n type of semiconductor formation. Similarly, in case of p type of semiconductor, we will be adding a trivalent impurity. Trivalent impurity, there will be 3 valence electrons will be provided by an impurity, and the intrinsic semiconductor, as it has 4 valence electrons. So obviously here you can see we have added a bismuth here, sorry, boron. So this boron is possessing 3 valence electrons, and the intrinsic semiconductor is possessing 4 valence electrons. So the first 3 valence electrons of the boron are going to form a 3 covalent bonds. This is the first covalent bond, this is second covalent bond, and this is third covalent bond. Even though there is one more valence electrons possessed by the silicon is there, but boron is lack of another free electron, means this covalent bond is not complete. E covalent bond enagilla complete agilla, because I have already told you to form a covalent bond each adjacent atoms should share 1 electron each, means covalent bond is formed only when 2 electrons are involved. But ಇಲ್ಲಿ 1 electron is already that is contributed by the silicon, but boron it is a lack of 1 electron to form a covalent bond, means this lack of or this deficiency of electron is nothing but that is called as hole. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನಾನು hole ಅಂತ ಕರಿಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. And this deficient is ready to accept an electron, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು acceptor impurity ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. Acceptor impurity, it creates a hole. Like this, each boron atom whenever it is added, it is going to create a hole. Like this, as you go on increasing, more and more boron atoms are added to the structure, means more and more holes will be created. Again, this is not entertained. Again, we should follow the doping level or doping concentration 1:10 to the power of 6. For million number of atoms of silicon atoms, I have to add only 1 atom of boron, correct? So if you talk about in the majority and minority charge carriers, means as we can see clearly here, the number of holes are more in number compared to the number of electrons, means as we know that holes are positively charged, that's why it is also called as p type of semiconductor. And in the previous case, there will be majority charge carriers of electrons will be there, and each electron is of negative charge, that's why it is referred as n type. N means negative type and p means positive type, or you can say hole. Next and very much important process you have to understand, that is diffusion. So this diffusion plays an important role whenever there is a p-n junction is formed. What is this diffusion? As we know that if there is a non-uniform doping is there, non-uniform doping in the sense the doping is not same here. If the doping was same, over all area of section, you will be finding the same number of free charge carriers. Since the doping is non-uniform here, you can see the concentration of charge carriers is more here, and here at this portion it is very less. If this is a condition, ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ the charge carriers, they will try to move from higher concentration area to lower concentration area. ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವೆ, because the concentration is more here and the concentration is less here. So this is a process of charge carriers movement from higher concentration area to lower concentration area. This is due to non-uniform doping, and the process is referred as diffusion. ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಇನ್ನೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಡಿಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಅನ್ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಏರಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್? ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಡಿಫ್ಯೂಷನ್, and this plays very important role in p-n junction formation.